colors of the sun. To dream, believe.
Let's listen to Pavarotti.
Can I be your superhero?
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I am your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. And I don't want anybody to get too excited. The video footage I showed you in the beginning of that white Elantra pulling into that hotel, that was off an episode of First 48. So that didn't pertain to the Idaho 4 case. It is kind of strange, though, that many crimes out there are committed by white Elantras, apparently. But what I want to do in this video, I wanted to get this one out to you tonight before we were able to dive into those court docs when they finally hit the docket, is I want to do part 2 of my Roomates series. And I meant to do this all in part 1 video, but that video started to get a little bit long, so I broke it into 2 parts for you. And I'll give you a little bit of a recap on it, and then we'll get into the points that I wanted to really make. Because when you really think about it, I seen a video the other day by the Chaos Sector, and it related to the white Hyundai Elantra found in Eugene, Oregon. And they had a pretty good hypothesis with the fact that, you know, Eugene, Oregon was 8 hours from, Moscow, Idaho. I don't think they came to the right conclusion because they don't have the information that I have. But with that in mind, it does bring up a very interesting point. And that is really the point that I wanted to make in these videos. But just to recap, as we listen once again to the guy get out of his car on Linda Lane. I mean, I've broke it down. I know exactly what happened. That is not Koberger's car that drives through there at 3:45 a.m. That is the white Elantra that is found in Eugene, Oregon. I'm almost certain. It drives through, and that drive-through, that pass-through at 3:45 signals the guy in the car to get ready. When that car pulls up to the King Road residence, they've got phones. I don't know how they haven't caught these guys. They've got phones. You can hear him get on his cell phone. He's talking to the people in the white Elantra, and they're telling him to get ready. He immediately gets out of his vehicle, opens the door, shuts the trunk, racks his gun, talks to him for a little bit longer, and then within 5 minutes, walks towards the King Road residence. We're talking at 3:50 a.m. in the morning. And then he comes back to the vehicle at 4:23 and drives off. Now, other people say they hear even more, but if I can't hear it very, very legibly, then I don't say it. The only things I know for sure that I hear on the Linda Lane footage, y'all, is somebody saying, "I see you, Farley," which was the most shocking thing I could possibly imagine. And that really goes back to the beginning of the case. If you look into Steve G. texts, he's even saying, well, we don't think the Charlie stuff really makes any sense. Because nobody deciphered Charlie into Farley until Bubbly Waters was able to do it. And I found Farley over a year ago looking for a connection with the parents to the case. And when I found Farley and I found Rhodes and Burroughs, I had been looking for over a year trying to put it all together. And then when Bubbly Waters said, wait a minute, that's I See You Farley, I went, oh my God, we just placed the guy at the crime scene that I've been investigating now for over a year. So that was a big deal. But keeping that in mind now, we got an assailant not only going into the King Road residence with other assailants that I pointed out to commit the atrocity, but we've got an assailant now that we know verifiably was carrying a firearm. Now, no bullets that we know of were fired in that house. So what was the point of the firearm? Well, I'm sure it was just in case something went down, but I'm sure it was also crowd control, y'all. And that's why I say Dylan is the key. She's got to be the key. She's the inside person for these guys. And we've connected her to the group through her boyfriend very easily. So with her being the connection, again, I think the only reason that Bethany's still alive is because of Dylan. But I don't think she got out of there without a serious threatening. So when we listen to those statements by DM and the supposed statements by BF, there's not a lot we can put into them except for the fact that when they make those statements, you can bet there's probably some truth in there with the fiction, because it's much easier to make up a lie on things that you know than to make up a farcical event altogether. So when they say things like, I seen a guy in a ninja mask with bushy eyebrows, probably one of those assailants was wearing a ninja mask and had bushy eyebrows. She's probably telling them what she actually saw. She just isn't filling them in on the whole story. It's called lying by omission. But when we keep all that in mind, and then we start to look at these facts and circumstances that surround this situation, especially as it relates to that Hyundai Elantra that they found wrecked and abandoned in Eugene, Oregon on December the 17th, that date has significant value to me, and it should to you as well. Let's take a look at some things that I'm talking about in this, and then I'll show you what I mean by December 17th as a very, very important date. Okay, so I showed you this in part 1, and it says this same security camera shows the suspect vehicle departing from the area of 1122 King Road at 4:20 a.m. When it says this same security camera, it's talking about 1112 King Road, because it just said that that was the security camera that was activated by motion that caught the audio at 4:17 of whimpering and a loud thud and a dog barking. Now, a lot of people have come back and said, well, Pavarotti, that video camera would run 24 hours a day because you could put some kind of card in it. And I appreciate what they're saying, but when it says that camera is activated by motion, that means it's a motion-activated camera. It's not going to be activated by motion, then run for 24 hours. That's not how those cameras work. They work on a time schedule, either 30 seconds, 1 minute, or 5 minutes. So that is, and the reason that I say that camera, and I said it takes a minute before it actually comes on. It's probably not a minute, it's probably a good 5 or 6 seconds though. There is a delay when it comes on. And if you watch, one of my favorite shows is First 48. If you watch on First 48, and I tried to actually find that episode that I watched a few weeks ago that showed they had a motion activated camera, and by the time the camera activated with the car driving off, they just caught a glimpse of the back of the car in the camera because there's a delay when that camera comes on. It's the same thing we're looking at here, and we know that because if that camera was fully activated with all of the turns and passes, then they would have absolutely been able to identify the vehicle, the year model, and everything else. And they weren't. It says in the court record now that they were not able to identify the Hyundai Elantra because he never got a good view of the rear or the front of the car, only the side of the car. So that means they didn't get all of that fancy footage we thought they got on the 1112 King Road camera. But that is important. And then when you take into consideration, like I was saying, that the key to this connection through everybody that I've put together is the mother and the stepfather, the mother, the father, and the stepmother going to the victims, and then the circle completes itself with Dylan. So Dylan, I believe, is the key. I also brought up the fact that Dylan was involved in many different conversations with detectives over a period of time. Bethany was not, and she's under a protective order for some reason after her first affidavit. And if you listen close in that hearing with the judge, in the open hearing, when he brings up the fact that there were affidavits in the beginning that somebody had seen somebody leaving the house and changing in their underwear and leaving, he said in the beginning, like those were affidavits, but they're under a protective order now and we can't talk about them for some reason. Well, think about this for just a second, y'all. Bethany's bedroom is on the first floor. If she's seen somebody leave in their underwear, she more than likely seen them leave in their underwear out the front door. That's the exculpatory evidence, I believe, that the defense has been looking for this whole time. And now it makes all the sense in the world when you think about the fact that the handrail going from the second to the first floor is where unknown male blood B was located. It was located as he was going downstairs. So Bethany knows much more than we think she knows, but for some reason, she is remaining silent. And I think that reason is quite simple. I believe that they scared her so bad that she is not going to go back to the area and she doesn't want to say a thing. How would they scare her that bad? Well, 4 of her friends are unalived, and I imagine she's seen the wrong end of a weapon. Now, it may have been a weapon like this, or it may have been just a 40 cal. I don't know. A lot of people that I've shown that racking sound to have expressed their opinion that it was more than likely an SKS than a 40 cal. And the reason that I say, and I've always said from the beginning, is the people that committed this atrocity, they needed that inside person because they were not familiar with the residents. And you're going to find when this thing goes to trial, they found a hand-drawn map of the King Road residence interior outside of the King Road residence the day of the atrocity when they started investigating. They wiped that clear from all of the public's knowledge. But if you paid attention to the case the very first day, they announced it to everybody. And that will be an exhibit in this case. And this is not the drawing, but this is a replica of the drawing that you see right here. Yes, if it was frat boys or Jack D, they certainly wouldn't have needed a hand-drawn map of the house. And you can bet that's coming in as evidence. But I said it's December the 17th is the key to this thing. Because what happened on December 17th? I'm going to tell you 2 things happened that were huge, and they were very similar in nature. The first thing that happened was 2 unknown male blood DNA STR profiles became known to law enforcement. They became known to Brett Payne, we know now for a fact, because he acknowledged it. But also, on December the 19th, Brett Payne says he became aware of Kohberger through IGG. That was the first time he ever heard Kohberger's name, as he has now admitted in court. But what did not add up, though, if you watch that video I did, is the fact that Brett Payne admitted on the stand that he didn't pursue the 2 unknown male blood DNAs because they were already focused on Brian Kohberger from his DNA on the knife sheath. Unfortunately for him, he had just absolutely annihilated himself because he admitted that he knew about the blood on the 17th and he didn't pursue the blood because he had Kohberger's name. But then he admitted he didn't get his name till the 19th. So totally annihilated himself and proved that they knew about Kohberger before he said that they knew about him on February the 19th. Excuse me, it's on November the 9th. What am I doing here? On December the 19th, I left the 1 out, and that really messed me up. I'm really excited on this one, I guess. So what does that mean, though? That means that they knew about Brian Kohberger on December the 17th, and he admitted on the stand that's why he did not pursue the 2 unknown male bloods. So when you apply this exact same logic with the blood in the glove and the blood on the handrail and the way that Brett Payne ignored that evidence because he already had Kohberger's name and they were focusing on Kohberger. Now let's move to the wrecked Hyundai Elantra that they found in Eugene, Oregon. Guess what? That wrecked Hyundai Elantra was found in Eugene, Oregon on December 17, 2022. The same day that they became aware of 2 unknown male DNAs. Now, according to Payne, he didn't get Kohberger's name till the 19th, but he did not follow the blood because he had Kohberger's name. Same thing is going to apply to this car right here. They knew about it on the 17th. They already had Kohberger's name. They were focusing on their suspect. So while the law enforcement said that this car wasn't belonging to the crime in any way, they only said that because they weren't going to investigate it, just like the unknown male blood. They were focused on their suspect at this point. Now, that verifies exactly what I believe happened in this case, because I believe once the assailants left the area of Moscow, specifically from Wasankari Construction, where they all gathered after the crime, they went straight up to Spokane. And we know that because Farley was arrested in Spokane on November the 22nd. Here's how I believe they did it. I believe they went there in several vehicles. One of them being the Hyundai Elantra 2013 that was later found in Eugene, Oregon. The other one, it's just too much of a coincidence that this Kia was found in the Spokane River on November the 21st, and it was reported stolen. There is no doubt to me that this was probably what Farley was driving. He put it in the Spokane River the day before he got arrested in Spokane. But that means the white Hyundai Elantra continued on to Shelton, Washington. And if you watched our video we did a few days ago, maybe a week ago, on Bryson Gill and all of his paperwork, I proved in that video that on December the 8th, Michael Slocum removed all the bad stuff out of the trunk of that vehicle, and we knew it didn't have tags, and he would have headed south towards Arizona, going straight through Eugene, Oregon. But here is the key to this. If you leave Moscow from Wasankari Construction and you go to Spokane, Washington, and then you drive to Shelton, Washington, that is a 7-hour trip. 7-hour trip. I've heard 100,000 times about the 8-hour delay from the Roomates. But you got to understand, in that video where the assailant walks back out by the dumpster smoking the cigarette, and he gets picked up in that car, and he tells the guy driving, that's it. That is the end of the crime right there. It is not an 8-hour delay. It is a 7-hour delay from 5 a.m. to noon when they called 911. That was the exact amount of time that they knew they needed to get back to Shelton, Washington. And they were told, do not dial 911 until noon. And they were told that for that reason right there. Now, that is all my humble opinion, of course, but my humble opinion is based on facts. And we have dug and dug until we have actually dug up all the facts in this case, and I believe everything that I just said lines up perfectly with the facts. I know I went through that kind of quick. You may have to watch it a couple of times, and speaking of that, it's always interesting to me because I know I've got a lot of new followers now that I didn't used to have. And y'all probably aren't familiar with many of my videos. I seen in my comments yesterday, somebody said, now, and I don't know if they were on the guilter side or what, but they said, now, wait a minute. If you're saying that the Aryan prison gangs were the main ones involved in this, and Ann Taylor is now representing one of the Aryan prison gangs, isn't that a conflict of interest? And I thought to myself, wow, if you haven't seen any of my videos, for those of you that are just now starting, it might be worth your time if you ever get a little time and you're bored. Go back and watch all of my videos, and you'll see a journey, a long journey of uncovering facts, going in wrong directions, and finding the right direction in this case. And you'll learn things that I'm sure will absolutely blow your mind. So, especially when you start talking about the guys that he was talking about with Mead and Uppenauer. He obviously hadn't seen, or she hadn't seen any of those videos. Yeah, it's not a conflict of interest, but it certainly is a complementary situation to this case. I can assure you that. But I wanted to get that one out, and I will hopefully get the other docs that we're waiting on in the morning, and I will get to work on those for you. So, but in the meantime, please like and subscribe to the channel. Post your comments, thoughts, criticisms. And until next time, Pavarotti's out.
I was an ordinary boy until I broke the rules. My